welcome to Afflictions Sugarcoated, a podcast where we sugarcoat some of the world's so-called afflictions and rate their plausibility on a scale of 1 to 5. I'm Minnie Kim, and today we'll be sugarcoating Glengarry Glen Ross. Let me just preface this by saying that the play Glengarry Glen Ross itself didn't need any sugarcoating. It was the themes in the play that we're going to talk about. The play itself was actually pretty great. It's not every day that you stay at a friend's house for about 10 days for the first time that you see your first Broadway show. So that did indeed happen to me. And the play was called Glengarry Glen Ross, and it may be familiar to some people because of the movie. So how it happened is that it was my friend's dad's birthday, and he, much thanks to him, booked another ticket to the play their family was saying for me as well. But as always, before we get into the commentary, some anecdotes and history for those of you who've never heard of this play. I certainly hadn't before a few weeks ago. So, the 2025 version, basically a summary, is this. It's set in a Chicago real estate office, and the play follows four cutthroat salesmen trying to survive in a high stakes sales contest. And only the top two closers will keep their jobs at the end of the day. The others will be fired. Not really sure why. Probably the office is tight on money. And Act 1, there are two acts, is three vignettes explore the pressures and schemes the men use to get ahead: bribery, deception, manipulation, all those things. And Act 2 is when the office has been burglarized. And there is this kind of hinting to the fact that some of these real estate salesmen will be trying to burglarize the office. So we still don't know who's done it. And the best leads of the year or week have been stolen. And the tension is starting to rise as suspicion falls in each and one of the men, and everyone tries to scramble and salvage their sales, careers, and ultimately their dignity. Now on to some history of this idea, Glengarry Glen Ross itself. The playwright was David Mamet, probably pronouncing that wrong, and it was written in 1983. And it actually got the Pulitzer Prize for Drama in 1984. Mamet based the play on his own experiences working in a real estate office in the 1960s. The salesmen in Glengarry Glen Ross are pressured, manipulative, often desperate, and it kind of reflects the capitalist dog eat dog environment that he observed while working there. The title refers to two real estate developments: Glengarry Highlands, which is the premium property that they're selling now, and Glen Ross Farms, the less desirable property they sold before. And there are certain themes that pop up here and then. The first and most obvious one is capitalism and moral decay. The salesmen begin to lie, cheat, sometimes steal. They manipulate customers and each other to survive in this cutthroat environment. And this leads the potential customers become more of a currency than actual human beings. There's this one moment in the play where this giant guy loses all of his money due to one of the salesmen who made a mistake, and their humanity is reduced to their ability to close deals. It's all about the rankings, not about their ability to be human. I would say that there is one theme about masculinity, toxicity. The office is very, very toxic. And power is demonstrated through verbal dominance, like quote unquote talking like a man. And there's desperation and failure. Levine's tragic arc highlights the despair of aging in a system that only values winners. So a lot of these people in these offices they're pretty old, I would say. The only one that actually survives is the one that is played by Kieran Culkin. He is quite young compared to the others. And finally, there's the illusion of the American dream, that hard work and charm don't necessarily guarantee success, and that dream is sold to customers and employees alike, but the system is in fact rigged. So, the structure of the play that I saw, not the generic structure, is in Act 1, three separate conversations happen between salesmen and either coworkers or clients. In Act 2, It takes place in the office the next day, and one of the salesmen has stolen the premium leads. There are some iconic lines that should be noted here. In the movie, a guy called Blake continuously says, "Always be closing." And Blake also says, "Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers." Roma says, "A man is his job." Levine says, "I had a sale. I closed it in quite an enthusiastic manner." And Moss says, by the way, this is probably the most important part of the play that I watched, the 2025 rendition, is, "You never open your mouth until you know what the shot is." And this basically came out when a guy was telling another customer about lies. And the person in charge of the office basically told the customer the truth. And that is why Moss gets angry and says, "You never open your mouth until you know what the shot is." But let's talk about the 2025 Broadway revival, the one I had the great privilege of watching. Well, the first thing that you notice is that the cast is incredibly star studded, and it's a very creative team. The first one is Kieran Culkin, obviously, NBA Succession as Richard Roma, and this is actually a Broadway debut for him. Um, as for Bob Odenkirk in Better Call Saul, he comes out as Shelley Levine. This is also his Broadway debut. Bill Burr, comedian and actor, as Dave Moss, also a Broadway debut. Michael McKean as George Aronow. Not sure if this is his Broadway debut. I don't think so. There was additional cast such as Donald Weber Jr. as Williamson and Howard W. Overshown as Balin. And the director of this play was Patrick Marber, who is a Tony and Olivier winner. In terms of the box office and financials, the production budget was $7.5 million, which is not a lot when you think about it, but quite a lot when you think about it twice. It was a recoup investment by May 13th, 2025. This was a very much strong commercial success. There was a lot of critical audience reception. The Guardian lauded it as quote unquote dazzling, praising Odenkirk and a younger Roma twist from Culkin. Entertainment Weekly said it was a lively and humorous take. Strong performances from Odenkirk and Culkin, solid average B grade. The New York Theater Guide criticized its pacing and over reliance on casting, calling it, quote, another day at the office, lacking urgency. The Onstage blog said that it noticed a surprising comedic layer, asking, "Is Glengarry Glen Ross a comedy?" Well, to be fair, the themes weren't necessarily comedic, but the actors were very funny. And what makes this revival so unique is that it's a triple Broadway debut with three major screen actors coming to the stage together. It's Culkin, Odenkirk, and Burr. I mean, those are very big names. Out of all of this, I was honestly just really happy to see some of my favorite act person. Bob Odenkirk is literally a star from Better Call Saul, which I had just finished just probably a week before. And it was really a surprise because I did not know that it was going to be Bob Odenkirk. No idea. So when he came up on stage, I was like, I recognize that voice. But, of course, there are other things to be considered, like its critique of capitalism. Why is it so bad? Well, Glengarry Glen Ross argues that it's bad because it makes people do dangerous, immoral things. But it is an inherent part of capitalism. Our trusty site, Investopedia, names just a few of these crimes. It creates inherent class conflicts between capital and labor. It generates enormous wealth disparities and social inequalities. It can incentivize corruption and crony capitalism in the pursuit of profit. It produces negative effects such as pollution. I mean, sure, but what other alternatives are there? Well, the main one is socialism. Of course, we can just think of socialism as one umbrella term, but we also think of China, the Soviet Union, Vietnam, and Cuba. But it can't just be boxed into one. There's democratic socialism, market socialism, communism, as well as non-socialist approaches like eco-socialism, degrowth, and anarchism. It's not a zero-sum game. In capitalism, everything ties back to what earns the most money, and usually that's tied incredibly with success. A lot of people ask each other as a fun debate conversation, can money buy happiness? And yes, the answer is definitely yes. Can money buy healthcare and health? Absolutely. Can money buy you people? I would argue so. People who aren't just gold diggers or people who are paid to be with you, but money just opens a lot of doors. We also think about what's most efficient. What is the most efficient way to earn the money or get the biggest bang for your buck? When we think about it in a certain way, the majority of countries do not have a single handedly great socialist market. I mean, why do we even have subsidies in healthcare? Why do we have benefits for the elderly? Why do we have food banks? Theoretically, capitalism should be the answer for everything. It allows even the poor to get jobs and earn money. But we all know that it doesn't work like that, at least if you've lived in anywhere like the States or anywhere like even Korea, where I live. There are other factors. If a person is born into a family of minimum wage, of course they're going to have more of a difficult time not joining that same industry because it's the only thing you know in a small city like in Montana or Illinois. If college is not the norm, of course they have the mindset of why go to college when I can put food on the table now at 18. This is the so called poverty cycle, and people call it unreal. The three rules from a lot of political commentators call it number one, finish high school, number two, go to college, number three, get a job, and perhaps number four, if you really want to be happy, marry someone. These are significantly difficult when an ultimatum is handed to you to either study for the final exam or feed myself. Of course, we're talking about the very extreme of both sides, but capitalism creates the very extreme. It forces people into the top end or the bottom end. So when Shelley Levine had the option to either win or lose, he chose to win. And a lot of times we can blame him for it, but can we actually? He did, in the end, just want more money. He wanted to feed his family, and he wanted to retire. It's very funny the amount of parallels I randomly had during my stay at this friend's house. Firstly, we see Glengarry Glen Ross with Bob Odenkirk, and on all of our car rides, we play ABBA, and one of their most famous songs, The Winner Takes It All. Not only does the song quite represent Better Call Saul. It actually comes out in Better Call Saul. It's one of the most famous songs there. But it's also about winning. Then you realize that Better Call Saul is about winning. Jim does everything he does for pride, money, for love. And in a weird way, although it really isn't, although there are many more nuances in this system that supposedly values merit, that it uplifts everyone in the system and people get what they deserve. And although it may not be entirely true, we keep it steady and we even endorse it and we even love it because we convince ourselves that it is the best system that we have. And to be honest, it probably is. I give the sugarcoating of Glengarry Glen Ross a 4. This podcast was written and produced by me, Benny Kim. If you have any comments or reviews, please feel free to write any and all thoughts in your podcast reviews. If you'd like to suggest an affliction for me to sugarcoat, please email me via afflictionssugarcoated@gmail.com. And if you get the chance, please watch the movie or the play, Glengarry Glen Ross. It might change your mind about what you've been buying, working on, trying to achieve, wherever you live. Okay, I'll see you next month.